Michael Leeds grew up in Southern California when the car culture of the 60s peaked, before moving up to Santa Cruz. Michael is multifaceted and multi-talented and has a very zen demeanor. He's a glass artist, a multimedia artist, master of metal, and conjurer of mega-modified machines. Just your everyday Promethean mechanic of the ages, creating mega big and small. Michael says he has the industrial disease in which the only possible therapy is creating automotive sculptures you get to drive. We met in his workshop, which I don't believe has any equal, and I asked him what makes him tick creatively.
I disdain the ordinariness of the mainstream. You know, just to become another drone. What is very inherent in my nature is something about non-conforming and maintaining my autonomy, and rather than what the Oriental idea of becoming just a component part of a larger whole. That really fed something very inherent in my nature. I don't want to find a happy, comfortable place. I want to continually be challenged. And I strove to, be an edge ranger, to try, a lifestyle in maybe all regards, as many different regards as was in my capacity. To try things that were different, and the beat goes on. I was just driven, I asked my parents for a lawnmower engine when I was 13 years old, and I grafted it onto my Schwinn bicycle and got the fan belt from the Pep Boys, and I became the terror of the neighborhood. I was just smitten with this idea of this mechanical prosthesis, this thing that could elevate me to superhero status. You've got this thing that you bolt on, or you sit in, or you get behind the wheel, and all of a sudden you're motorized. You've got all this horsepower. You can get out into the world and you feel the wind in your hair, and you're free, and the feeling is outrageous. It's absolutely spellbinding, captivating. In this love affair with vehicles, we're paving the surface of the earth. This thing for our so-called convenience is also, expresses aspects of our personality and who we are. And then you get into the creative end of it, creating new vehicles that haven't ever existed before. That becomes a kind of everything from folk art to fine art to very high art.
So it doesn't seem that you worry too much about how far to take things. You take them as far as they need to go.
Well, yeah, there's an investment in process, and I would say that I'm extremely endowed in terms of what I call coalescing in the ether, kind of putting a concept together, kind of projecting an idea, and then getting it off dead center, initiating it, making it happen, getting it going. And I'm extremely invested in process to a fault. I have to admit I'm not a great finisher. I just like to stay involved in process. There's a term I came up with that every choice you make is the death of a million other possibilities. You choose a color for something, that's the color it is. But in my mind, I like to consider it all the different colors that it can be. I have a lot of different things that I'm involved in, metal sculpture and mechanical things, from graphic arts to architecture to some stained glass. And each one of these things, each and every one of them is a journey.
Michael has created a V8 trike named Roadkill and the Green Machine, which runs on biodiesel. And is right now in the midst of building a remarkable new trike. But the granddaddy of them all is his Big Bertha Roadster, built from a 41 Seagraves fire truck platform with an 1,800-pound V12 propane engine with a 70-gallon capacity. Michael is part of an informal blastoline brotherhood with Randy Grubb, a renowned glass artist and motorhead from Oregon, and with Rodney Rucker, a train wreck dismantler from Arizona. Conspiring together and bouncing off of each other's genius, they have created obscenely large automobiles with power plants such as an M47 patent tank engine that is 7 feet long, or a PT boat motor with almost 2,000 horsepower. These intensely over-the-top vehicles have received prestigious design awards. Randy conspired on Big Bertha, and Michael in turn helped design Randy's Blastoline Special, which ended up in Jay Leno's hands. And Rodney's Blastoline B702 sold at auction in January 2008 for $475,000.
If you come to those creative moments and you have a list of all the things that you need, and you know how they're going to look and what they're going to be, that's one way of approaching your project, your task at hand, and that kind of to me comes in the realm of craftsmanship. But if you can come to each creative moment open, bring the accumulation of your experience and your confidence to that moment, but be open to the possibilities. You have some criteria. It needs to be leather, and you'd like some stitching on it, and it's going to be like a seat of a motorcycle sculpture. And so you want something that evokes that feeling, so you want to key into people's orientation to it, and then you find an old catcher's mitt. And so you've come to that moment and you perceive that, wow, I never would have thought of that. And so it becomes something that when somebody looks at it, immediately it evokes that feeling of motorcycle seat, but then they see that it's something different. So you get them to hinge upon that difference between what they thought it was and what it actually is. And so that threshold that the artist experiences when he makes that discovery is then taken and applied to his work, and it maintains that charge for every single person that is able to perceive, to experience that threshold. So you've had an experience, you've had, this is a creative adventure, and you're leaving a trail for people to follow. A big part, a huge, huge part of committing yourself to a creative artistic path is the ability to endure failure. I heard a quote, "Success is the ability to go from failure to failure with enthusiasm." And if you don't have the ability to endure failure, I'd say that you don't want to be an artist, because it's not going to work. I think that knowing how not to do it gives you your edge. I think that creative manifestation fills the void where there is an intense desire. I think that when you create an intense desire for something, and I'll get a little metaphysical here, that along with that desire, you have an intention and you have a commitment. I think that the universe is there to back you up to the level of your commitment to it. And it's not how well you convince other people of how committed you are. It's that the commitment that you make to yourself. And the universe will be there to the level of that commitment. It's funny that as soon as that decision is made, the phone rings or somebody knocks on the door, and it's like,
thank you, that was awesome.
right on.